2, 1.
Good evening, everybody. This is a special meeting of the Northampton City Council to consider the Board of Health recommendation to opt out of aerial spraying and to refer Cross Street that parking ordinance. So we are going to, today's May 27th. It's a little bit after 6 p.m. And Laura, will you please take the roll?
Councillor Dwight.
Here.
Councillor Foster.
Here.
Councillor Jarrett.
Here.
Councillor Labarge.
Present.
Councillor Maori.
Here.
Councillor Nash.
Here.
Councillor Quinlan. Not present. Councillor Shara
Here.
and Councillor Thorpe.
Here.
Madam President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I want to announce that we are being audio and video recorded. So anyone who's with us on Zoom will be audio and video recorded. First up on our agenda is to refer 21.275, an ordinance relative to parking on Cross Street, to legislative matters.
Move a referral.
Second.
I think the motion was made by Councilor Maori, seconded by Councilor Jarrett. Any discussion on the referral?
No, I believe it was Councilor Foster, or was it me?
I did move a referral. I just didn't know if you had beat me to it.
I don't know. We became harmonious, so it doesn't matter. That's fine.
Okay, Councilor Maori is very graciously giving that to Councilor Foster. Any other discussion on this referral? Seeing none, roll call please, Laura.
Councillor Dwight.
Yes.
Councillor Foster.
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councillor Labarge.
Yes.
Councillor Maori.
Yes.
Councillor Nash.
Yes.
Councillor Shara
Yes.
and Councillor Thorpe.
Yes.
Okay, that has been referred. Next up, we have discussion and deliberation on opting out of the state Reclamation and Mosquito Control Board SRMCB spraying. So for this process, you need, the Board of Health needs to have been consulted, and they have. And I see at least one member here. And we need to allow public comment on this topic. So I'm going to open up the floor to public comment on this topic. So this is only to opting out of spraying, aerial spraying. So if you would like to comment on that, please raise your hand. So to raise your hand on Zoom, you either find it under reactions, which is in the bottom menu bar, or sometimes it's in the participants panel. So if you click on participants and that panel opens up, it might be down at the bottom. So thank you. I see people are raising their hands. And I'm going to confer with Councilor Maori, who maybe has talked to someone from the Board of Health. Would you like the Board of Health to speak first, or maybe Cynthia, would you like to talk about the meeting that the BOH had?
That would be good with me. I'd love to hear what Cynthia has to say. I missed the end of it, so.
Cynthia, you should be unmuted.
I hope to represent the issue. I was here just to listen, but my colleague, I see one of my colleagues here.
Oh, I see.
Here is Laurent. Yeah. But I'm happy to say that, yes, the Board of Health recommended 4-0 to opt out of the plan. I'm not a scientist, so we had a lot of public comment on this issue, a lot of concerns about this issue. I was actually kind of tracking the concerns and, or the comments regarding this issue, and it was 10-0 based on what we heard. But basically, we have this small window of opportunity to opt out of the state's plan if we were to reach an emergency situation of EEE. Now, I don't know what triggers that, but it's some kind of science. And if the state says we're at that place, they would spray. And the spray first would be a truck spray, and if that doesn't work, it would be an aerial spray. And I can speak to my vote. I was concerned about things like we were told that if we didn't opt out and we needed the spray, that the spray would avoid organic gardens. And I just couldn't get my head around how that could possibly be when I think of the Grow Food Northampton plots in Florence, how you could stop spraying there and then just move, particularly in an airplane, and then just move to the center of Florence. And so the science is interesting on this topic, as is the science on all pesticides. But as it was presented to us, and as we know, our last outbreak, and I won't say it was an extensive outbreak here in the city or in the state, was in 2019. These outbreaks generally have a cycle to them, and they normally are a 2-year, maybe a 3-year cycle. So we're in 2021. And the key thing that made me vote the way that I did was that the spraying does not eliminate the risk. Okay, it reduces the risk. So the best protection against any type of a virus of this nature or any type of mosquito bite is what we all know, which is repellent, water sources, screens tightly on windows, etc. So I'm giving you some of the rationale as to why I voted. There's a lot of statistics, you know, what we're doing right now about mosquitoes in Northampton, because they seem to be in certain areas in town, like the meadows, et cetera. And Meredith O'Leary, the director of health, would have a much better picture on how she monitors, and we do monitor. We're part of this mosquito control district where monitoring occurs on a regular basis. So I don't know if it's acceptable, if I'm looking for my colleague, Laurent. Yes, he's still here if he wants to speak to the issue at all, or if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Actually, before we go to Laurent, I appreciate that. We have an order. This is sort of an unusual process, but there's an order. So I'm going to read that order, and then why don't we put it on the floor, and then we'll go to Laurent, and then we'll go to public comments. Thank you for that sort of synopsis of what happened, Cynthia. So this is in the City Council, May 27, 2021, upon the recommendation of City Councilor Rachel Maori, an order opting out of mosquito control spraying conducted by the State Reclamation and Mosquito Control Board. Whereas pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 252, Section 2A(b)(2), the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, EEA, is authorized to develop a process for the State Reclamation and Mosquito Control Board to permit municipalities to opt out of spraying conducted by the board pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 252, Section 2AA. And whereas the EEA has developed a process for such opt-out, which requires in a city that the city council hold a public meeting in which public comments permitted, and that the council seek input from the local board of health. And whereas the process developed by the EEA also requires that the city submit an application for approval of EEA of an alternative management plan for mosquito control. And whereas on May 20th, 2021, the Northampton Board of Health voted to recommend that the city opt out of the state mosquito spraying program. Now, therefore, the Northampton City Council orders as follows: ordered that the city of Northampton shall opt out of the mosquito control spraying conducted by the State Reclamation Mosquito Control Board under Mass General Law, Chapter 252, Section 2AA. The foregoing vote was taken after a public hearing in which public comment was permitted, and it is in accordance with the recommendation of the Northampton Board of Health. On or before May 28, 2021, the city shall file with the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs an application for approval of an alternative management plan, which approval shall be required for the opt-out to be recognized by the State Reclamation and Mosquito Control Board. Councilors, can I get a motion, please?
Move to approve, please.
Motion made by Councilor Dwight, seconded by Councilor Labarge. Okay, thank you for letting me interrupt to do that. Laurent, let me find where you are. I saw you before. There you hi. There you go. Is there anything you'd like to add, or?
Can you hear me and can you see me?
Yes.
Perfect. And I apologize. I'm going to keep it brief because I'm simultaneously cooking. But I believe what Cynthia said reflects what was said during our meeting and is accurate. I will add that to at least to explain my vote. I was concerned by the loss of control. Basically, we have to say yes or no now, and ultimately suffer the consequence of it later. And I felt that the risk of having an unnecessary spraying imposed us by the state was not something that I was prepared to accept. But there's always the alternative later, if we have an outbreak, to either do some campaign of spraying that we control ourselves, or I would assume if there was a significant outbreak, I assume that the state would not abandon us and would still come to help if we were requested it. So that explains why I decided to opt out. That's all for me.
Thank you so much. Okay, so and I don't see, am I correct that I don't see anyone else from the Board of Health? Is that right? Yeah, okay. So we'll open up to public comment. Darcy, hold on, let me go to the top list. Darcy, can you please state your name and your city or town of residence?
Darcy Sweeney, Florence. Thank you, City Council, for putting this on the agenda, and I would like you to support the Northampton Board of Health's recommendation to opt out for a lot of reasons that Cynthia mentioned. Research has shown that spraying isn't effective for various reasons, and spraying may actually increase the number of mosquitoes by killing their natural predators. Also, a few days after a spraying, there are the mosquito populations rebound again. And also, as Cynthia mentioned, wind drift makes it difficult to control where pesticides land. Ground spraying can drift up to 300 feet and aerial spraying up to 8 miles. Third, I'm sorry, it's the most vulnerable populations are at risk, especially children and people who have pre-existing conditions. And finally, all insects are at risk, including pollinators. And we're in the middle of an insect apocalypse where insects are dying en masse from humans' use of pesticides. So we really have to take that very, very seriously. So again, I urge the City Council vote to opt out. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment. Okay, next is John Cohen. Are you able to unmute, John?
Yes, am I unmuted now?
You absolutely are. Thank you.
I'd like to speak basically the way Darcy spoke. I want to urge very strongly that the council opt out, largely for the reasons that Darcy spoke about. We are in an insect apocalypse, and losing our insects means we lose our birds, means we lose our amphibians, and means we lose many reptiles, means we lose our pollinators. And this is not some hobby. This is an emergency for life on Earth. And we must take it with the utmost seriousness. And luckily on this local issue, we have the power to make the move that we must make. So I urge that the council vote to opt out of aerial spraying. And I would urge that we begin the process of encouraging the rebirth of our insects, our amphibians, our birds, our reptiles, and the natural habitat which they require. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, Carol Horowitz is next.
Hi, I'm Carol Horowitz, and I live in Florence at 226 Emerson Way. And thanks so much for calling this special meeting. I know you're all very busy. And also thanks to the Board of Health for recommending opting out. So I'm a member of Climate Action Now, and I'm also on the policy committee of the Northeast Organic Farming Association, NOFA Mass. And last summer, leading environmental and conservation organizations, including Mass Audubon, Mass Sierra Club, the NOFA, Mass Association of Conservation Commissions, Conservation Law Foundation, Regeneration Mass, Massachusetts Beekeepers Association, and others that it's too long a list, formed a coalition to oppose aerial and truck spraying and work on safe ways to control disease-spreading mosquitoes. Many cities and towns have already opted out, including Amherst a week or two ago, and others are scrambling right now to opt out by the deadline tomorrow. And I think they're opting out because they recognize that spraying pesticides is ineffective and it's hazardous to the health of all living beings, and that overuse of pesticides is related to our climate crisis. And there is an alternative coming. In Massachusetts, Senator Joe Comerford and other legislators are supporting legislation. It's called an act providing for the public health by establishing an ecologically based mosquito management program in the Commonwealth. And it was filed this session, and it replaces the current outdated, expensive program and it's more effective, affordable, et cetera. And it's scientifically based. And I hope the city of Northampton will support that legislation. I wanted to read you something that NOFA says about the current spraying program. Not only is unrestricted spraying a threat to the integrity of insect biodiversity and ecosystem health that our farms and gardens rely upon, such spraying raises serious health concerns, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. These chemicals are known to elevate risk factors to our immune and respiratory systems. Not only that, but even according to the National Centers for Disease Control and the US EPA, spraying of pesticides to control adult mosquitoes is the least effective and most environmentally damaging method to control mosquito diseases. And then also want to read you something from Mass Audubon. The effectiveness of mosquito control in a rural or suburban landscape with large amounts of wetlands is questionable. There is little documentation of the effectiveness of mosquito control activities in Massachusetts, and most of the available information is on short-term effects within a few days after pesticide applications. Pesticide applications may harm or kill beneficial species, including pollinators. This has already been covered, I know, but I think it's worth saying again. And mosquito predators, alter water chemistry, lower water levels, and degrade wetland habitats. There's no organized program for monitoring of such potential effects. The high reproductive rate and short life cycle of mosquitoes may allow populations to evolve which are resistant to the pesticides, while local populations of mosquito predators, such as frogs, fish, and predatory insects, are less resilient. That's the end of the Audubon quote. If we're looking for a mosquito control plan, there is a great one that was developed by the city of Boulder, Colorado. It's called the Ecological Integrated Pest Management. I'm pretty sure that it was provided to the Board of Health. I'm not sure if it was also provided to the City Council, but we'd be happy to send you the link to that. So I just urge you to please follow the Board of Health recommendation and vote to opt out. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Marty Nathan.
Sorry. Thanks. I'm Marty Nathan at 24 Massasoit Street. I'm really grateful to the Board of Health and to the council, but particularly to Rachel Maori, who really threw down on this. I am a retired family practitioner who for decades has served farm workers and their families, people who bear the brunt of exposure to pesticides. I am here to ask that for public health reasons, as well as environmental risk, the city of Northampton opt out of aerial spraying. My understanding is that the state would use annual 10+10, which is a combination of two ingredients, sumithrin and piperonyl butoxide, in aerial spraying to destroy mosquito vectors should Eastern equine encephalitis or West Nile virus be detected in the state. We do not have access to the threshold or parameters of spraying, since none have been made public. Triple E is a severe and often fatal disease, but it occurs very rarely and usually in eastern Massachusetts, although some mosquitoes have been detected out here. But Northampton is in the lowest risk category geographically. West Nile virus has recently been more common than Triple E, is distributed around the state, but has a much lower mortality rate. On the other hand, the permethrin used in spraying to protect us against those diseases also poses a significant health risk. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that because of the increased risk of toxicity to children who, for several reasons, are both more exposed and more sensitive to exposure, pediatricians advocate for reductions in pesticide use. I'm a family practitioner, which includes acting as a pediatrician. Acute pyrethrin exposure in children can result in headache, fatigue, vomiting, diarrhea, irritability, rash, tearing, hypersecretion, loss of muscle control, respiratory symptoms, and seizures. Chronic exposure in humans is not well studied, but in lab animals, can result in liver and thyroid abnormalities, liver tumors, respiratory damage, decreased body weight, neurological changes, and pregnancy loss. The material data safety sheets reveal that Anvil itself has not been tested for its reproductive health effects or risk of birth defects. In other words, there's a lot we don't know here. As a doctor, I had to weigh with every single recommendation I made or prescription I wrote the relative harms and benefits of that treatment against the threat of the disease itself. It seems that here, risk of severe vector-borne disease is very low. Spraying is not necessarily effective, and there is significant ecological and public health risk in the proposed solution. We should employ measures that are not dangerous and are known to be effective, including looking at the Boulder plan. But overall, we should avoid doing harm while funding and pursuing proven effective public health interventions to prevent mosquito-borne disease. Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Marty. Next is Gwen. So sorry, can you unmute?
Hello, my name is Gwenevra Lodi Nabad, and I live here in Northampton, and I'm a gardener and a community advocate and a climate action person, and I've been working in the gardens my entire life. And I am very happy that the Board of Health saw that it was really important to eliminate pesticide spraying, especially aerial, but just in general, so that people who grow their own food can grow it without the concern of having more pesticides in the soil and also going into the waterways and also harming the children. So thank you so much ahead of it for approving the opt-out. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Johanna Ruth.
There, thank you. I'm Johanna Hallbeisen. I live right next to the Barrett Street Marsh and want to put a very personal plea in for it. I love it. I've lived next to it for 21 years, and cutting back on the insects, which would cut back on the birds and the other animals in the marsh, seems catastrophic to me. I'm a gardener. I live in an apartment complex that has a mini community garden in the back, and we're right next to the marsh. And frankly, the marsh would be producing a lot of mosquitoes, and it surprisingly doesn't. I'd hate to see the spraying. Personally, it would affect my health. And as somebody in the Board of Health meeting said, you know, there's no peeing section in a swimming pool. Where it goes all over. And so I put in the plea for our marshes and our wetlands. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Steve Jones.
Good evening. I'm happy you guys are considering this issue. I live in Northampton and Florence. My background is that I'm a retired public health physician. And I'm asking that you opt out. As Marty said, the risk is quite low. And the effects on the environment are awful. It's sort of like trying to, and I hate to use a gun analogy, but it's sort of like using a shotgun, and has all sorts of undesirable impacts on the environment. So I would ask that the board, the council, opt out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I don't see any other hands. Let me give it a moment. And if anyone's having trouble raising their hand, feel free to tell me that in the chat. I haven't seen that in the chat. Or you can try turning on your camera and just waving at me. Oh, wait, here's Rebecca Hart. Rebecca? Can you unmute? Any luck? Okay, while you're working on that, Rebecca, I'm going to go to Ilya. Can you unmute?
Yes, thank you. I've been following the discussion about opting out of the insecticide spraying. And I am really pleased to see how many people are aware that this is something that we can't continue to do. And I believe that with every city and town that is added to the list of those that are in opposition to having that spraying, helps to reinforce the message so that other cities, towns, and perhaps other states can follow suit, adding us to so many other communities worldwide, because the problem is not local, it is definitely worldwide, and many, many peoples are extremely concerned. I've had the privilege of interpreting for an indigenous tribe in the Amazon recently, who has worked tirelessly to be able to bring that message loud and clear to the planet. And they have had to learn new language. They have had to learn technology, but bless them, they have prevailed to the point where they are now being used as an example for the rest of the world in understanding that we cannot continue this irresponsible course of destroying our planet. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you state your name and city or town for our record?
My name is Ilia Cornier Rivera. I live in Northampton.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. Rebecca is having a hard time unmuting. If you're on you're on an iPhone. It's *9, I think, on a regular phone. Maybe try that. *9. Any luck? No. This is not our usual practice. But since Rebecca can't unmute, they put in the chat, I think, what they wanted to convey. So I'm just going to read that. We don't usually receive comment by chat, but in this instance, I will. Rebecca says, sorry about that. I'd like to urge the council to opt out for the bees, the organic farms and fields, the people in the community. Those are my kids having a fight in the background. That's not what Rebecca was saying. That's just my commentary. So again, I'd like to urge the council to opt out for the bees, the organic farms and fields, the people in the community environment. Thank you for meeting and considering this issue. I'm from Florence and I'm a teacher. Okay, thank you very much, Rebecca, for sharing that with us. Sorry that you were not able to unmute and share that with us with your own voice. Okay, any other comments? Councilor Mary?
I know we're not in our usual format. President, could you turn on the closed caption if you can? I know this is.
Apologies.
No, that's okay. We're in a special meeting.
There you go. It should be working now. Okay. Anyone else like to comment? Let me scroll through and make sure I don't see any physical hands. I don't. Okay. So now this is, as Councilor Mary just said, this is sort of different than how we usually do things, but I will open it up to the council for any discussion. Councilor Mary, then Councilor Labarge.
Right. Well, first I just have to name the experience I have on council, which is just being so impressed with our residents and their background. I just felt like I could sit here all night and I want to know so much more. Thank you all for your input on this. And also it makes our job easier. I don't have to, you've covered a lot of ground. I did just want to frame it for the councilors, you know, what's changed and what's happened is in last year, Governor Baker filed a bill to kind of empower the state's mosquito control board, which he saw as really necessary. And then there was, you know, and then there was an addition of a task force being added that I think is being created. And then of course the bill people referring to Rep. Sabadosa and Comerford, an act providing for the public health by establishing an ecologically based mosquito management program in the Commonwealth, pushing back against this practice. So that's just the framing in Massachusetts. What really impresses me is, well, first of all, there's wildly varying rates of even how effective it is at killing mosquitoes. But, you know, it's gone from 38%, sometimes 91%. It's all over the place. But really the thing is that there's no evidence that spraying actually reduces human incidence of EEE. So when you're looking at the risks, I mean, there's really, it's hard pressed to find that. I was going to quote the Department of Public Health, which stated in June that the reduction of risks from EEE relies primarily on the use of personal prevention behaviors by individuals. And, you know, our the Mass Department of Environmental Protection has said that Anvil 10+10, which is the pesticide that Massachusetts uses, is toxic to aquatic life and highly toxic to honeybees. So, and to be very honest, I really don't want to rely on the state to make these calls. They sprayed last September after mosquito season was over. They spent $3 million spraying, and they couldn't find one case. They couldn't really make a causal relationship to any kind of human incidents with EEE. So I think people have established it's antiquated and kind of antiquated science, and really it's really time to think of things differently and how we approach this. And I have to say I'm very annoyed with the state at this point. As I understand it, it sounds like the state will pay for this aerial spraying, but leaves municipalities in jam, because if we opt out, I will tell you that the cost does fall on the municipality. And so I think that's very disappointing, and I'm hoping that our state legislators will be able to remedy that. And let's see, anything else you all didn't, you covered so much. I just want to say the state itself, Commonwealth posted controlling larval mosquitoes while they are still concentrated in a pool of water is easier, more efficient, and less costly environmentally than controlling dispersed adults. So there's a lot of conflicting information even at, on the official state level. I think I'll just leave it at that, but that's my reasons for bringing this forward to you all, to my fellow counselors.
Thank you. Councilor Labarge?
Yes, I want to thank everybody for speaking about opting out. And I agree. I never agree to this. I want to thank Marty Nathan again, always. Her knowledge as a doctor. And I have to agree. I think that it definitely affects the health of every one of us, our children, animals, and I have so many animals with all the property we own. And to me, I feel this is the right way to go, is to opt out. And I want to thank the Board of Health for making that decision. I think it's the right decision. And I feel that there should be other opportunities. And we have intelligent people to help a system that will be affected and not affect our children or anybody's health. So I agree with everything that I have heard tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Other Councilor Foster.
Hi, I'd like to thank Councilor Maori for bringing this forward, Councilor Shara for agreeing to hold a special meeting on this issue. And to the Northampton residents that really pushed for this and the Board of Health for recommending. I do want to acknowledge, most of you know, in my day job, I work with people who have disabilities, and including I've worked with a number of folks who have brain injuries from insect-borne illness, and it's devastating and it's rare. And we know that aerial spraying, the information that we're seeing is that it's not effective. And so there can be sort of a knee-jerk, well, we need to prevent these things from happening. But aerial spraying introduces all of these other factors into the environment that have known damaging impacts without known positive impact. And I think that's really important. And I also just want to express my incredible gratitude for this process. Before I lived in Northampton, I lived in another community on a lake that was being overrun with an invasive milfoil species. And there was a push and a treatment of the lake with chemicals to kill the invasive species without a discussion of the greater environmental impact. I mean, many of us were trying to have that discussion, but it was not heard. And that was a real driver for me in wanting to be involved in local government, is seeing how that process could be better. And I'm really proud of our community, that resident voices, you all with so much knowledge, your voices are being heard, and they're driving this important issue forward. So thank you so much, and I look forward to supporting this.
Thank you, Councilor Foster. Let me just make sure I can see all of the council. Oh, I can't. Oh, Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Council President. And thank you, Councilor Maori, for bringing this to Council's attention so that we can talk about this tonight, and to all of the advocates and for the Board of Health. I just want to ask a few questions in terms of, so I noticed that Health Director Meredith O'Leary is not part of this discussion, and that I'm wondering if somebody could summarize her position on, opting out.
I can certainly, maybe.
Right, and am I asking the right question? I'm assuming that information should be part of this discussion.
Councilor Dwight, are you raising your hand in?
I was just probably going to say what you're going to say, which is that she shared that with us last night, about 12 hours ago.
She did, and also Director O'Leary has agreed. This has kind of been the process, which is in the order or is referenced in the order, also involves a pretty long application that needs to be submitted by tomorrow. And Director O'Leary has agreed to do that part of the process. So she's been working on this basically since the Board of Health voted. So that, I think that maybe gives you the information you need. But Cynthia, if you have anything to add, please go right ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't have anything to add. It was a board vote, and I don't want to assume Meredith O'Leary was for or against anything. I mean, she was actively giving us the information that we asked for. She didn't put us in any one direction over another, as she oftentimes doesn't do, but we're always interested in her opinion. So she knew this was a monumental task to get this done, but she, as you all know, rose to the challenge again. So I can't say specifically, Councilor Nash, if you were looking to see if she was for or against. I just, she was moderating the discussion and giving us the information that the board needed to make its decision. And I'm not sure if Laurent Levy had a different impression, but that was my impression.
I can't see Laurent at the moment, but
probably eating, I would imagine.
Yeah.
May I comment on that briefly?
No, wait, hold on one sec, Counselor.
I'm happy to speak.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Sorry,
that's fine. As Cynthia pointed out, Meredith is always very neutral, so that she doesn't influence our deliberations. And I would say that she was neither strongly in favor nor against opting out.
Thank you. Counselor Nash, is this just
Yeah, I
Counselor
just
Nash
want to
still has the
follow
floor.
up and
Go
just
ahead.
say thank you for that, because the neutrality she displayed for the Board of Health was evident the other night when she was speaking with us, that it was very informational, and that I found it, you know, that the prevalence of EEE in our area is very minimal, and the possible places that it could actually occur are that would be in very specific locations, and that by and large that our applications of BTI are the most effective, the anti-larval applications are the most effective treatment to suppress mosquitoes. And also, Councilor Maori referred to personal prevention behaviors, and that also is the other thing we need to tend to. And I'd like to thank Dr. Nathan for the way she laid it out, that there's not a lot of EEE. West Nile is just not as deadly and there is risk, and that the dubious effectiveness of aerial spraying. I think that just kind of lays it out for me. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Counselor Nash. Counselor Dwight.
Oh, no, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, I thought there was something you wanted to add. Counselor Jarrett.
Thanks, everyone. I agree with the other counselors and members of the public have said. I would add, just speak to the issue of the PFAS contamination, and how this forever chemical is found in many of the sprays, and that this is a serious water concern in southeastern Massachusetts, and so that these aren't just temporary problems that might arise, but potential permanent problems. So just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Other counselors? Okay. I just want to add my thanks, particularly to Marty Nathan, and to Counselor Maori. Counselor Maori and I spent a lot of time on the phone in the last week or so about this. So thank you for doing all that work to make this happen. And of course the Board of Health, who scrambled to make this happen. And especially Director O'Leary, who, as I said, really has taken on a huge task to get this application, which when I looked at it, I was very overwhelmed by, because it's a very specific, it has a lot of specific information it asks for, and is no small task to complete. But she agreed to get this done by tomorrow, which is really quite remarkable, and we owe her a lot of thanks. And I also want to thank Laura Kretzler, who did a lot of scrambling to make this all happen. So thank you so much, everyone, and everyone who commented at the Board of Health. You know, I was there for a good chunk of that public comment until I had to leave to lead a council meeting. So thank you for everyone who spoke there and then came to speak here. And Councilor Maori, I share your frustration and annoyance with the state. And I, in general, and also this process has been a challenging process for us to be able to kind of take this control. So I'm right there with you on that. But I fully support this, and I thank everybody for all the work that they did to make this happen. Any other discussion? Seeing none. Oh, Councilor Maori.
Just a quick thank you to you, Council President, because we are facing budget week and you took it on and you made this happen. And I really appreciate it. I'm sure we all feel that way.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Gwen, once we've sort of closed public comment, we don't usually go back to more public comment. Is that okay? Okay. All right. So if there's no further discussion from the council, roll call, please, Laura, on approving this order.
Councilor Foster,
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councilor Labarge,
Yes.
Councilor Maori,
Yes.
Councilor Nash,
Yes.
Councilor Shara,
Yes.
Councilor Thorpe,
Yes.
and Councilor Dwight.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Quick process note to Laura.
Yeah.
Do we need to do 2 readings?
Where I'm going. Good question. Yes, that would.
I move that we suspend rules, just
I'll
to be safe.
second that.
Motion been made by Councilor Dwight, seconded by Councilor Labarge to suspend rules. Any discussion on suspension of rules? Just let me explain to people what's going on in our rules, which is not how most councils do it. We require 2 readings of certain things, and they're usually spaced between 2 meetings. So to have 2 readings in this night, which we must do because this application is due tomorrow, we need to suspend our own rules to then do a second reading. So we have just put a motion on the floor to suspend our rules, and we are now going to vote on suspending our rules. And then if we vote in favor of that, which I imagine we will, you will see us then put a motion on the floor to do a second reading. So that's what's happening right now. Any discussion on suspension of rules from the council? Roll call on suspending rules, please, Laura.
Councilor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councilor Labarge,
Yes.
Councilor Maori,
Yes.
Councilor Nash,
Yes.
Councilor Shara,
Yes.
Councilor Thorpe,
Yes.
Councilor Dwight,
Yes.
and Councilor Foster.
Yes.
Rules are suspended.
Okay, second reading. How's that?
Who was the first? Who made the
Councilor
motion?
Labarge.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Labarge, seconded by Councilor Dwight on second reading. Any discussion on second reading? Hearing none, roll call, please, Laura, on second reading.
Councilor Labarge,
Recording stopped.
Hold on.
Recording in progress.
Councilor Labarge,
Yes.
Councilor Maori,
Yes.
Councilor Nash,
Yes.
Councilor Shara,
Yes.
Councilor Thorpe,
Yes.
Councilor Dwight,
Yes.
Councilor Foster,
Yes.
and Councilor Jarrett.
Yes.
Okay, the order is now passed in 2 readings and is fully done. Thank you, everybody, for that. And I just want to say, anyone who happens to still be here for Cross Street, I had a couple people in the chat asking whether there was going to be discussion on Cross Street. We were just referring that to our legislative committee. that we usually do those referrals late at night. No one ever comes to speak on the referral. And so I'm sorry if people were confused and thought that we would have a discussion. When we refer things, we don't deliberate on the substance. We only deliberate on where they're going. And so that has now moved on to legislative matters. And am I correct, Laura or Councillor Dwight, that that meeting is going to be June 14th at 5 p.m.?
Correct.
So if anyone's still here wondering why we're not talking about Cross Street, apologies. June 14th, 5 p.m. legislative matters. That's when there will be public comment on that and deliberation from that committee. Okay. So there's nothing else on the agenda.
Move to adjourn, please.
Second.
Motion made by Councillor Dwight, seconded by Councillor Jarrett to adjourn. Laura, roll call please on adjourning.
Councillor Maori,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Shara,
Yes.
Councillor Thorpe,
Yes.
Councillor Dwight,
Yes.
Councillor Foster,
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett,
Yes.
and Councillor Labarge.
Yes.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night, everybody.
Yes,
So-
you too.